reflection. It's not ideal. You're getting a reflection in your face right now, but it is nice to be sitting on the square, man. It's a definitely.
And I told
a
you this before, but you had my mom at St. Mary's because she was proud of you. She had spent a year now, but she saw your growth and what you were doing, and she would talk about her old students, she saw doing well because older people get into Facebook, right? So she started.
Your mom
following you.
Man, your mom was always involved in like commenting on my stuff, and it's funny because like your mom, early on, 6th grade, I remember like, Mrs. E's tough, Mrs. E's tough. Right. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be hard. Sure. And the whole year was tough. But 7th grade, once I got out of her class, she was like this like most amazing, loving, like supportive person. It was crazy because like she had that tough love when you had her. And when you were out, she like propelled you with so much grace and so much like, I just remember always after that I was like, she's a different person now. I'm not in her class. Sure. And after that I was like, wow, like the tough love thing helped me a lot. In class was hard. Right after I was like, she's the nicest woman I've ever met. I thought she was hard and like mean at times. Yeah. No. She was just giving us what we needed. And that, I mean, think about 12-year-old. Like I think about 12-year-olds now. I'm like, that's what 12-year-olds need, like that discipline. And so once I have so much love for your mom, man. So anyway,
I don't want. A lot.
We could talk about that, man.
Yeah,
I'm sure. But we're good. Cool. Well, is this episode 20?
Yeah.
Episode 20. Welcome, episode 20 of the Nickla Group Podcast. Ryan Elinkowski, right? Thanks for coming with us. Now you run St Jude House. What's your title for St Jude?
Sure, I'm the executive director at St Jude House.
Executive director in Crown Point.
That's right.
Perfect. So we want to talk about, and like you said, good timing with the month that it is, right? You can touch on that a little bit, and then because it's domestic violence, right?
Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Yep.
So
thank you so much for having me at this time.
Of course, man. And we just, we want to highlight what you guys do for the community, find maybe some other partners who might be interested in helping you guys as well, and just share like your story. So tell us a little bit about your background at St. Jude and just in general getting to where you are now and, how you got to this point.
Sure. So my first involvement with St. Jude House goes back to my days at St. Mary's in Crown Point. Our youth group actually in 8th grade got to be part of the first playground that was being built at St. Jude House. So that's when I was just first introduced to what St. Jude House was and the mission. And then, of course, many years go by. I went to Purdue Northwest and changed my major and started in social work. And my wife and I, was my girlfriend at the time, started a toy drive for friends. I had a friend that owned a bar in Griffith. And it was very grassroots, $5 cover charge or bring a toy, to kind of spread the joy to get in. We had bands and comedians. So we did some fundraising for St. Jude House. And then I had the opportunity for one of my internships to do it at St. Jude House in the children's department and really fell in love with the mission even more. So I led a direct service team for about 3 years. Then I had an opportunity to take a leadership position at Boys and Girls Club. And then when the executive director position opened up, I applied, and it's coming up on 4 years now.
Nice.
So.
Wow. Okay. So how old were you when you were at St. Mary's when you started? So how old were you then?
So 8th grade, right?
Man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What would you, because I think about me in 8th grade, right? It was basketball, baseball, girls. Like it was just thinking about like all the stuff young boys think about. You're in 8th grade and you're like, I want to go help and, run a toy drive. Why do you how did that stem? Where does that come from in you to just naturally be like a giver and someone who has that service mindset?
That's a great question. I think being exposed just with the playground project in 8th grade was an eye opener. Knowing that there's women and children that have to leave abusive, high lethality situations to live at a shelter, to be safe, to kind of make that plan for the next step of their life. And as I got older, realizing, when we're younger, we're in college, events were expensive. You wanted to go to a really nice, gala and rent a tux. So we thought, how can we get friends and together and do something? And that toy drive is what we called it, really evolved. And then getting to know the leadership and just, building a partnership with St. Jude House and seeing that there were so many people that wanted to help was really inspiring. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing about philanthropy is, people can give in any way. We talk with our board, you hear time, talent, treasure a lot. And that's it. I mean, nonprofits, that's what most nonprofits need is, a little bit of everything really to move forward. So that was kind of, the inspiration. And then doing the internship in the children's department, really working with the kids hands-on. I knew that I fell in love with that mission, and I'm really blessed and grateful to be in the position I'm at now.
That's awesome. So with St. Jude and St. Jude House, talk on the story, right? How, because to me, I'm familiar, but even I don't have a deep knowledge of what it is and what all you guys do. So Can you talk about the story and in general, St. Jude House?
Yeah, absolutely. So Don Burrell is our founder. And if you don't know anything about Don Burrell, I always start our tours talking about Don because such a visionary. So Don sold his used car, this is many years ago, right, for $700 and started a photo imaging lab in the basement of a church. And he made a prayer and a promise to St. Jude that if his business would make it and if it would prosper, he wanted to do something so significant to honor St. Jude. And St. Jude, in case anyone doesn't know, the patron saint of impossible or desperate causes.
Wow,
so
that's cool.
His photo imaging lab, yeah, right. Yeah. It'll give you the goosebumps, right? And his photo imaging lab grows to be the largest in the country. And Don had a mostly female work staff, and he's looking out his window and he notices a trend on Payday Friday. So we have to go way back in the day when there's paper checks, and paychecks are getting snatched out by husbands in the parking lot. So really, this is financial abuse. He's identifying this way ahead of its time, and he also sees physical signs of domestic violence. So Don knows what he needs to do, right? And this is builds the first domestic violence shelter. Teams up with the Franciscan Sisters of Chicago, and it's the first shelter in the state of Indiana to have a public address, right? So this is groundbreaking in 1995. Most shelters are a hidden location.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So abusers can't find, the survivor. So St. Jude House has been built, the right way, and Don did his research, and kind of toured the country, had a private jet and looked at, how do I build this? So it's really fascinating and just so inspiring, that this many years later, right, we go into our, 28th year of service, that we're still a public address. And there's two big reasons why that address needed to be public. One, so it was more accessible to women and children. Two is so that we would talk about it. Because, if everything is going to remain hidden, are people, going to talk about it? And part of our strategic goal to this day is still to bring awareness, provide education so that people know who we are and what we offer.
Mm-hmm. Is Don Burrell from the area?
Yeah, Don Burrell is. Yeah, wow. And he's still a mentor to me. I mean, I'm grateful. I leave lunch with Don, and I'm on fire.
I bet.
He has still so much vision. I'm grateful for his mentorship and friendship.
That's
for sure.
Amazing. So, St. Jude House, is it a national organization?
So we are our own 501c3.
Okay.
And we know the Children's Hospital St. Jude, that same patron saint of impossible causes. So sometimes there is some confusion with that,
Gotcha.
But with Don making that promise to St. Jude, that's why we're St. Jude House.
Okay.
And a lot of people think of a shelter, and people, what we see in the movies is you would envision, if you've never toured one, a large open space, people fighting for blankets perhaps. The vision of this is to make this as much of a home-like environment, a really trauma-informed care environment. Mm-hmm. So we have 9 bedrooms, 40 beds. So when the family's large enough, they'll have their own space, which is really important when you're kind of going through a time of unpacking some trauma and planning for the next step.
Wow. Okay. So St. Jude House, separate from St. Jude, the hospital,
right.
not affiliated, really.
Right.
Okay.
Not at all.
And so the St. Jude House here in the area is how many? You guys have just the one shelter in Crown Point, right?
Right.
Awesome. Okay. And what are some of those services that you provide for women and children? Like, what are some of the most common things that you find? Is there a specific, domestic violence? Is that the main thing? Or what are all the things that you guys do and the services you provide?
Yeah, so domestic abuse is definitely our focus. So, and I'm glad you asked that because, again, when people think of the word shelter, they're thinking of safety, they're thinking of food, again, all important things, right? But we have comprehensive and compassionate services. So we have a legal advocate. Her name's Pam. She's amazing, and she'll help clients kind of navigate sometimes a very complicated legal system, help secure protective orders. We have an adult advocate. We'll work on a trauma history, provide support groups. We have a case manager that'll help with housing, unemployment. Safe, stable, and secure housing continues to be the number one need that our survivors have. We also have a children's advocate and actually a children's department. So Dawn and Felicia are our children's department, and Dawn will help children enroll in school, work with mom, providing, if there's any parenting skills that the mom may need. And a lot of people don't think about children when, I do presentations, and I'll ask people, if I speak the words domestic violence, what's the first image that populates in your mind? And I ask people to think about that, and I don't ask them to share. I used to say, if you closed your eyes, what would that look like? And I don't ask people to close their eyes anymore. It's weird. Like, when do you open them, right? But it looks different. Yeah. It looks different for everybody. But commonly, people will think of the physical because that is the easiest, I think, for people, and they'll think of an adult female, And really part of our job is to talk about different forms of domestic abuse. Like, we have a financial empowerment program. So, you have financial abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse. And when people are enduring these, you can't see that. So, and people don't think of children. We serve more children than adults. Sometimes they're kind of the invisible victims in domestic violence. So we've come a long way, but we need to continue to challenge the stigma associated with it. Often people, and I say this too a lot, people say, well, Ryan, if it's that bad, why doesn't she just leave? And I'll say, well, why does he abuse? And I can list an infinite amount of reasons why, unfortunately, people do stay and have to stay in abusive relationships. But that's the complexity of domestic abuse, right?
So my it's funny because I'm very blessed I didn't experience these things growing up. Thankfully, I have the blessing of meeting my wife when I was 19, and my wife's background. It's crazy because I never understood. I remember growing up and my thought process, what I want to do for work, right? Thinking about building, making a lot of money, having a nice home. These were the things that came into my mind. And I met my wife, and I'd never met anybody before that genuinely never thought about the concept of money, just only cared about helping people. So my wife's background is psychology and social work. And she was a case manager for kids going through, in-home case manager for, at the time it was Meridian Health Services in Maryville. And going into, she had a caseload of 20 kids. Most of them were under 5 years old, and kids that were physically, mentally, every part of life abused. And my wife was going into these homes. And so it was my first kind of introduction to somebody like you who just has this servant's heart, but also just wants to help, right? And my education on it from learning from my wife is that it's a very, very rough system. The whole process is not a favorable system to kids and women, right? But specifically because her background was the kid side of things. So the system of Child Protective Services, all those things it's a rough system. I remember hearing story after story of what was happening in home, and CPS couldn't do anything about it, or didn't do anything about it, or those types of things. Are you guys working a lot with those? Do you guys work a lot with CPS and stuff
Yeah, we do work with DCS.
Or DCS, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, same, but yeah, interchangeable. So, there is, and that's tough. They do an amazing job. We worked closely with the leadership before, and now Chwan Stokes is the regional manager of Lake County. And, there are so many services that they do provide, and, and they're able to help us with. A lot of people, and this, especially in your business, Lake County, where we're at, right? 92 counties in the entire state of Indiana, and we're in the second most populated county.
Yeah.
So we're behind Marion County in everything. Some things are unfavorable, So I think they do a great job, and and that's where it takes a community and so many different partners.
Yeah.
I'm very, quick to say, a mission as big as ours, we can't do it alone. So, we'll have caseworkers, come in and work with our clients. But there's also a level of confidentiality, right? So, our clients are protected under federal and state laws under VAWA. So our clients will sign a release of information if we're able to communicate to any provider that's going to come in and provide service. And confidentiality is something we talk about every day. It's so important for a survivor to know that they can leave and be protected from their abuser in any capacity. So.
Did you have anything you wanted?
Yeah, we just were briefly talking about your sweatshirt. I didn't know if you could just unpack that a little bit for people. Just what is that movement? That
Sure. Yeah. So we work closely with Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence, or ICDV, and we get great supports from them. And this was a great campaign that we're continuing. So you see, you're supposed to leave, right? That is kind of the message from bystanders, typically that don't have a lot of knowledge maybe in domestic abuse. And then the survivor response is, it's not that simple. And that just speaks to, again, behind safe, stable, and affordable housing. Survivors have told us this is through a lot of research, listening. There's the stigma of not being able to approach a family member, a friend, fellow church parishioner, to share what's going on for the reason of being judged and told what to do, right? Sometimes people have good intentions, but when you first leave an abusive relationship, the lethality is the highest. And when I say lethality, we're talking about serious risk of bodily harm or death. So, that's why we want to, people to be able to refer to any program or, someone who can walk through someone about safety planning. We have to trust survivors and their decisions. We don't always, the general public are, going to a friend. And it's complicated because an abuser can be very well liked and respected in the community. However, what they choose to do behind closed doors makes it even harder for someone to reach out for help, because who's going to believe them, right?
Yeah,
all they know is this great person.
Yeah.
So this is just a very small way of kind of speaking to, what that looks like, and hopefully giving people another perspective, a way to kind of digest domestic abuse, because it's still sometimes very challenging for people to talk about.
Yes. I've, and again, personal people that I know that have gone through not physical, but more so mental and, abuse from their spouse. It is crazy, because that is exactly, I'm like, just go, and my wife had to educate me on that's not how these things work. It is, it's crazy. So your whole mission is getting women and children out of these situations, providing them the resources to, hey, if it's financial abuse, like that story you shared with, Don Burrell, right? And or if it's physical abuse, obviously that's probably going to be one of the bigger things, because it could be immediate, could lead to death, could lead to harm, those types of things. So you provide all, like the legal side of things too, like you shared. You got a legal department that helps with that. So you guys provide all these options to give people the ability. So how do these people, these victims who are going through what they're going through, how do they get in touch with you guys? Is it typically somebody knows somebody who is a victim and they share, and are you guys getting involved then? Is it, hey, the victim comes to you guys and they heard about you from somebody else? How is it typically happening? How are you helping these people?
That's a great question. Being a published address, we will ask, on a crisis call, so that we have a 24-hour crisis line. That's 1-800-254-1286. So 24 hours a day, we have staff there answering that call. So there's a lot of referrals. That's, people will say, and it could be a church, could be a friend, it could be an organization, could be a police department, could be the prosecutor's office. And then there are people that are looking for help. So our website, when you go to our website, which some people, this makes you think about how serious this is. There's a quick escape button, right?
I saw that today.
If you're looking at
wow.
services and that abuser is coming in the next room, you want to get out of there, because if that abuser sees that you're looking for service, so, and I'm glad you mentioned the emotional and verbal, because, when we were kids, right, people would say sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt them, right? Well, we know that's not true, right? Yeah. Domestic violence boils down to power and control. And an abuser will do whatever to maintain, really gain the power and control, and then maintain it. And that can be done without physical abuse. An example, a lot of people reached out after they watched, this Netflix series Made. It was 10 episodes, and it didn't portray physical violence, which was nice because people can see how dangerous and how scary that can get, where you still want to flee that situation.
Yeah.
So, just knowing that that is just as bad. When I did direct service, I did intakes. I answered the crisis line. I'll never forget one intake I did. It was a client that said, I don't know if I should be here. He's never hit me, right? So what it was is this particular abuser was waking her up 2, 3, 4 in the morning, could be any time, and screaming and yelling, and she could feel saliva, and throwing things. So this is abuse, right? And
totally.
And that's also a teaching moment that, we believe no man, woman, or child should have to endure any type of abuse. But, clients you get to a point where you can't take it anymore, right? And you leave. And, it's not just that physical, aspect. Mm-hmm. And people to understand that our services too are, we're looking at any form of abuse. When we look at the general scope, we're looking at 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will experience IPV or intimate partner violence at some point in their lifetime, right?
That's great.
That's it. So that's the other thing, kind of like, everyone knows someone, right?
Yes.
And if not, it's because unfortunately they're living in silence, right?
Yes.
So.
And how did the pandemic, like being locked up, in the house 24/7 for what seemed like an eternity, when we were locked up in quarantine, how did that affect domestic violence?
Yeah, that was a really, really challenging time because we saw more high lethality cases at once than ever, right?
Which are abusive cases.
Yeah. So when we talk about strangulation, right? So strangulation is a indicator of like it's the risk of I think it's something like 750%, right? Of a serious injury or death when strangulation's involved. So it's not unusual for us to have a client who has experienced strangulation, but it's unusual to have 4 or 5 at one time. And for one time in the earlier part of the pandemic, we were the only shelter open in Lake County. So that was challenging. And, there was a lot of media and awareness because, for the first time, people really started thinking about, okay, what does this look like when you're locked down with an abuser 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Literally. So, and people would ask, what do we do? Of course, we have a crisis line, but, we would safety plan, and give advice. If you're at risk and you need to get out, lock yourself in a space and call 911 because the police are going to be able to enter that home. And then we'd be there to respond after. But, just even talking through those things were very, very challenging and, difficult. And then as I reflected after, this happened, it's like, kids go to school or, people go to other events or work when, we went back to kind of normal, right? Mm-hmm. No one should have to endure abuse, even if it's from, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., right? But the pandemic did shine a big light as far as awareness and got people really talking about it quickly. I was quite surprised,
Mm-hmm. And another thing too, and leading from pandemic too, but also, you had mentioned sticks and stones, right? That conversation, it gets a lot. I think right now it gets a lot more difficult because of kids with social media, and so like. What kids are going through on a daily basis, God bless you, in school, and what they're going through with, that type of abuse through social media. It really is. I mean, even as somebody who, I run a business and I'll post things online and I'll have someone who I have no idea who it is talking, poorly or whatever, and I see that and I'm like, that bothers me, and it's no one I know. They have no relevance to my life at all, and they'll say something about what I'm doing or not doing, and that bothers me. compared to somebody and, you know, these young kids in school and their daily life, and then they go look online and there's things being said about them. Like, kids can be mean at their young age. I mean, are you guys dealing with those types of situations too, with kids online dealing with stuff at school? Is that something that you run into, or not really?
No, not as much. You know, our children's advocate does an amazing job. So when our adults are in a support group, right, and that looks like education support. That's also non-residential clients, right? So not everyone needs shelter. So our advocates are also providing service for, like, our legal advocate, again, helping with a protective order or going to court. You know, that abuser will be in that courtroom, just being there for that person. But our children have experienced, you know, a lot of trauma by the time they get to us. So part of what we're looking at now is, you know, do we enroll in Crown Point schools? And Crown Point schools have been amazing to work with. I couldn't say enough great things about them. You know, our children will, you know, be picked up first and dropped off last, so other kids don't know that where they're at, right? Or can they maintain in their existing school? There's a McKinney-Vento Act that would allow sometimes for the children to remain in the school they were at, wherever that is in Lake County. So we're looking at those things, and you know, the groups really help. But that's a lot of change for a child. So, you know, when I do speak about, you know, and go out with our children's advocate, you know, when we talk about empathy, think about, you know, as a kid, your bedroom, right? And if that's your space, you know, you have your posters or whatever that looks like for you. You know, to have to leave your home and then start a new school. I mean, we know children are very resilient, right? But we've been studying a lot about ACEs, you know, adverse childhood, you know, effects, and part of our job is, you know, to teach children, and when we go out to schools, is, you know, what does a healthy relationship look like? How do we avoid red flags and unhealthy relationships? I think we have had great success in that education. We want to break the cycle. If we don't attempt to do everything we can to provide those tools and resources, we know that this can be it can be generational, right?
100%.
So,
and it typically is. Yeah. It's, wow, man. Without giving too much detail and obviously confidentiality, I do think it's important for people who maybe have no idea, like they have no understanding of the things that happen outside in other people's homes, right in their communities. I mean, what are some of the things that you guys see, without giving obviously detailed confidentiality of people's specifics, but like, just so that people can understand and maybe be moved by the things that actually happen in this world. Because I feel like we talk to a lot of people and who will say, like, they want to give back in different ways. They give back into the community and so on. But so many people look beyond where they live because they think all the problems are outside. Oh, in other countries, you know, they don't have this. In other countries, they don't have that. And these. But right here, where we live, probably in your neighborhood, not just in Northwest Indiana, on your street, there's probably something happening. So what are some of the things that, like, so people can be moved by the reality of the things that experience? Can you share at least some examples of, hey, these are the types of things that we run across? So maybe that some people can be moved by it and see, like, get some drive to want to give back to a purpose like that.
Sure. So what I can say, you know, before going into any specific examples, you know, domestic violence, it has no discrimination against any socioeconomic class, any gender. The vast majority of our clients are economically disadvantaged women and children. That is, again, majority. However, we've served clients that already are very established and have great careers, but don't feel safe, right, being at a hotel because that abuser could see their car. To give you an example, you know, it doesn't really, I feel safer at St Jude House than I do in my own home, right? I love my home, but it is built for safety, and that's why no abuser has ever come inside, right? But some of the things that our clients have to endure, you know, even being a part of this work every day, it's hard to discuss because, you know, we have, you know, abusers that will even threaten the family pet, right? If you leave or if you don't get back, what they're going to do to that dog or cat. And if, you know, anyone has animals, a lot of people can relate to this. So we have a great partnership where we look at, you know, with Humane in having foster, you know, families for pets now. People don't realize how hard it is. When you look at, I would say 98% of our clients have some level of financial abuse. So whether that's the abuser controlling all the funds, not allowing that their partner to work. When you have that much power and control, to reestablish your life is very challenging and difficult. So, every situation's different, even though there's parallels, but I go back to that power and control because it all leads to that, whether that's physical, whether that's, tracking on the phone. I mean, some clients have reported they'll have to check in, at the grocery store on FaceTime to show their abuser that they're at the grocery store. It's things that people should never have to go through, right? And it is everywhere, it can be in any neighborhood. And, if you see, a $2 million house and it looks great from the outside, you don't always know what's going on in there, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, that's why I love opportunities like this to just talk about it, so that people, when someone does feel comfortable enough to approach even a friend and say, this is what I'm going through, just to be there to listen and be able to check in with that person, not tell them what to do, that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so big. That can't be understated, right? Because, we're humans, right? And what we do as humans, right? Even the best humans will judge, right?
Yeah.
We do it.
100%.
And if anyone can't own that they judge at some capacity,
Yeah.
I would say they're amazing. So just knowing that, not providing that judgment goes such a long way with domestic violence, right? And having those supports. We're also studying. We're starting to dive into loneliness, and what that looks like for our survivors. And in collaboration with ICDV, we did listening sessions, and we're looking at building a survivor mentorship program.
Mm-hmm. That's
awesome.
awesome.
Survivors, can walk journeys. They've been through experiences and they want to help. Mm-hmm. And then another way that we're going to help is mobile advocacy, right? We're building this amazing program. I'm hoping we're fully functional by January, where mm-hmm. we'll have 2 vans and, be able to be out anywhere in the community where a survivor feels safe. It could be a coffee shop, it could be a restaurant, it could be a park, and provide advocacy, whether that's legal advocacy, emotional support.
So they don't just have to go to your location. You can come to them.
Right. We're going to break that transportation barrier and, break the stigma associated. I think, when you come through, we are making huge strides in making the environment as nice and trauma informed as possible. But like I said, not everyone needs shelter. So being able to be mobile mm-hmm. and have what we're calling community advocates is going to be a game changer for a lot of people, and for us just to serve more survivors.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, could you speak just a little bit more on if you are a friend of somebody and somebody comes to you, like you mentioned, just mm-hmm. hearing them out and not giving them instruction on what to do, but if you had any advice for somebody who maybe sees red flags in a friend's relationship, or just identifies this could be a problem, like how would you recommend they handle that situation?
Sure. That's a great question. So I think knowing what resources are out there, depending on where that person's at, right? So there is Caring Place, which is a great program in Valparaiso, and we have Haven House in Hammond, and of course we're here in Crown Point. So knowing that there are advocates there that have been trained and understand, certainly aren't going to provide any judgment. And knowing that it's not just residential service, it can be help navigating the legal system. Our advocate is not an attorney, but we do work with ICDV, and there's even options for satellite attorney program to get pro bono attorneys.
Awesome.
So knowing that there's those resources out there, but if someone is not ready to make that call to a program, and then as just a friend, again, I'll lean on being able to listen, and not providing judgment, and then follow up, right?
Okay.
I think, as people, we do this with our friends every now and then. We get busy, but if you feel like someone's going through something, it means a lot. Just, hey, how are you? Check in. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So having that knowledge, holding that in confidence, and then following through, is a game changer. Some people will wait. it's not uncommon to wait a year, 2 years before you seek out for any help. And, domestic violence too, you fall in love with this person. Sometimes that doesn't happen till later on after the marriage has started. A lot of people think, well, why would you get into it with this person? Well,
so right.
You can't see
people
it.
Change.
You're so right about that. Or they were that way the whole time, and it's power and control, right? That's like what you're talking about. They're smart. They're not dumb.
Yeah, there's a lot of tactics. There's this whole power and control
layers,
wheel.
Yeah, very right. And like you mentioned, I love the idea, like you said, like check in with them, follow up, because that gives them that feeling of there is somebody else out there that cares about my well-being. If they don't have that, that's when you mentioned the loneliness side of things. Like they're the only one into this. They don't feel like they have any form of connection or someone to go to talk about. So you guys are a nonprofit, right?
Yes.
How can people help?
Sure.
How do you fund all of this support? Because again, you're a nonprofit. So how can the community help? How can people help? How do you guys keep these doors open and keep these services going?
That's a great question. All of our services are at no cost. So we don't run insurance. Legitimately, all free. And the only way that we're able to do that and grow is from individual donors, community partners, competitive grants. We do receive some government grants. Those are competitive, and that's, let's say, about 30% of our overall budget. So it's significant, but we couldn't do what we do without community buy-in. There's really no way. We have 8 HVAC systems. Just to give you an idea.
Wow.
The shelter is a sprawling ranch. It's much larger than it appears from the outside. So that's the only way we keep those doors open is people believing and walking that mission with us in all those different capacities.
So 70% roughly of how St. Jude House runs is from just people giving to what you guys do.
Yeah. And we have some amazing, Crown Point Community Foundation, Legacy Foundation. That's great. They've been walking our mission with us for a really long time. We couldn't do it without them. And then the individual donors. Kind of that you probably hear it from a lot of nonprofits. Every dollar counts, but every dollar counts. Awesome. People make a $10 gift, it means a lot because again, it's all going towards the mission and keeping the doors open, keeping the programming going, the staff, and now that we're at this part of growth with mobile advocacy, again, we couldn't do that. White Castle came on, has been a great partner.
Nice.
15 locations throughout Northwest Indiana, and then going into Illinois. The roundups, those help so much. Strike and Van Til did a great roundup. They're a great community partner. I've never ate so much White Castle. Driving through to, with a mystery bag to thank which is so much fun, right? But you start early and, you hit 8 or 9 stores. You got to buy something at each one, right?
Yeah.
So, I didn't. Be careful if you do that. If you guys ever want to come with me, next roundup, you got to pace yourself.
Absolutely.
Like 1 double cheeseburger. Stop.
Sliders will get the best of you.
Yeah.
One interesting thing I saw on your website was the cell phone donations. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people, cell phones continue to evolve, and sometimes people just something you hold on to in your junk drawer.
Yeah.
So there's a great program that we recycle them. So we'll wait till we get a large box, and that's just again another source of funding. We'll turn in the phones.
Yeah, I feel like that's an easy thing that it can be so tough in tough times and everything going on with the economy. People get so tight with their budget monetarily, but how many people have a pile of phones sitting, like you said, in a junk drawer? Right. It's something so simple. Even if they can't find it in their budget to make a direct monetary gift, just gather up your phones and take
Absolutely.
it. Right. Or even every 12 months, instead of getting a $300 credit towards your new phone, you can give to a
easy as that.
Community.
And we do a monthly wish list that we really do our best every month to look at what our needs are. So that can be, paper towel. I've been putting pop on there. Some people will say, well, it's not a need. It's like, what? Our clients
it's gotta seem normal.
Should be able to enjoy a pop.
Yeah.
Right? It helps. So, bottled water, wipes. So then we'll put our clothing needs, specifically that we have for children or adults. So every month we publish that on Facebook and our website. And I'll tell you what, that helps a lot. That's been a great community way to help us, because if we didn't have that support and we had to budget for all of those items, I mean, we've been over capacity or at capacity now for almost 2 months. I mean, we will use, we've used hotels, right, when we run out of space. So, when you have a lot of teenagers, when you have 20 or 25 children living at home, I think about my 2 daughters, right? I got one turning 9 next week and another one's 5, and they eat quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So when you think of, we have
a house with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any plans of expanding?
Yeah, I think the mobile advocacy is a great start, but the future, what we're working on with our, we have it in our strategic plan, but our next step will be looking at safe, stable, and affordable housing.
Yeah.
So that'll be a transitional program, the way I envision it, and we need to have more strategy around this with our board. But I look at it like a scattered model, which I've studied other programs. So you have relationships with landlords. And then you have, true transitional housing. So whether from shelter, you already have, the place set up, right? The apartment set up, and now it's just longer term. Because we are an emergency shelter, we're not defined anymore by a length of stay of 45 days. We know there's extenuating barriers where our clients need more time, but we are still an emergency shelter, and again, our space is really focused on domestic violence. I think sometimes people think we, have for just, homeless clients, but our clients are, DV, they're homeless because of the situation that they left. So safe, stable, affordable housing, transitional housing, that's going to happen. It's good to talk about it, but that's, once we get mobile advocacy really ironed out, that'll be our next big step.
Yeah. I got some ideas there. That's awesome. Cool,
definitely.
Man. Well, and where do people go to donate and to give to you guys' cause? Just go straight to your website?
Yes.
Or come in? Or
they can go to our website. If it's a financial monetary donation, they can use PayPal on the website, mail a check. Wish list items can come really to the door. It's very safe. There's a vestibule there. We have a little in-kind slip that you can fill out. Everything is, of course, tax deductible because we are a 501c3.
Yeah.
Yep. So all of that helps.
Perfect. And what about, we talk about this a lot on our team, but it's really easy to give money. And in many ways, I think that, and that's something that, we just had a pretty long, it was part of our discussion yesterday with our quarterly team meeting, but something we talk a lot about is giving money is easy, giving time is where I think it's the most valuable. And so are there ways for people to give their time to help with the shelter, to help in what you guys do? Are there events that you guys put on that people can donate their time and their money? Yeah. What are some things that people can do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 2 big events each year. We have our stand up for St Jude House, and we have a survivor celebration. So the survivor celebration is at Bulldog Park. Those are 2 events that people can help. We also have opportunities, we have a great volunteer. His name's Richard. We just recognized him at our survivor celebration, and Richard will provide transportations to help our clients get to appointments if they don't have a vehicle.
That's awesome.
So that's
Is Richard retired and he's just helping people
that's
out?
it.
A great guy.
Dude, what a way to spend your retirement.
Yeah, he's been with us for years.
Helping people, man.
So there's donations.
Shout out to Richard.
Yep, Children's Department. There's a lot of background checks involved with working with the children, but anyone has a heart to work with our children. We have times that are very specific to come in, and whether that's interacting with a therapeutic activity. Sometimes just help holding a baby, it all helps.
Yeah.
So
I have a 2-year-old daughter. I'm a fairly new father, and this stuff, I just can't imagine, man.
Yeah.
Mitch is a fairly new father too, his son, and
congrats.
Thank you.
Can't imagine, man. Anything else that you want to touch on, that you want to talk about, just to share what you guys do and what you're about?
Yeah, well, we covered a lot. Yeah. So I think again, we said the crisis line, our website. We're going to work on that to get updated website. Nonprofit things take some time.
Yeah.
But www.stjudehouse.org is our website. And, we're just grateful. We're grateful for the community, for opportunities like this. Again, for the awareness, the education. We have a few grant dollars restricted for lunch and learns. So, throw that out there. We can come and talk about some of our programs, education, and actually bring lunch, which is pretty cool for us to bring lunch to someone. Yeah. So if anyone wants to know more, encourage them to reach out because, again, we can't do this alone. It takes a community. It truly does. If we're going to make a difference and we're going to fight this public health emergency, then everyone can play a role in this in some capacity. That's the thing people need to know. It's not something where you can just pretend it's not happening. You can make a difference if you want to, right? So that's what I'd end with.
I was excited about the show, but it's by far my favorite episode we've done, man. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you. And no, man, I don't know, you're a breath of fresh air in this world, man. It's so crazy just to look at somebody that's from day one, just this servant's heart to get back. Thank you for everything you do for our community, man. It's awesome, and we appreciate you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate everything you're doing for the community. And I know I probably told you this once before, but I know my mom taught for 43 years, and she saw your growth and was proud of what you're doing. So appreciate you too.
Yeah, of course, man.
All the time. Great questions, Mitch.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
coming
so
on.
much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Got it.